start streaming. Might just slam out live real quick. Same thing. Just didn't give me a chance to. And we are live. Welcome back to Aussies Taking Over the NBA. It is the 5th of the 8th. It's August. We are bubbling along in the bubble. As always, you can find us live. Welcome back to podcast Aussies Taking It on iTunes, on YouTube. We're getting back into the Facebook swing of things. We're going to start ramping that up. We're on Twitter as well. Andy's here with me as always.
Indeed.
What do you got to say about the wider bubble to start with?
It's been pretty horrific basketball to start off with.
Has it been bad?
It has. It's been, let's be real. It's a ragtag group of people. There's a couple of teams that are in it to win it. I think that the Lakers, the Bucks, some of the more exciting part of the bubble isn't, the Lakers or the Bucks playing. It's who's going to take the 8th spot in the West. The East is kind of set in stone. Washington aren't going to go anywhere. They're kind of like number one for why are you even here in the bubble? I think they had to win all their games, and Orlando had to lose 7 out of their 8 games or something like that. It's something just ludicrously stupid. So the more important race is the 8th seed in the West. That's kind of the interesting part of it. You want some of the teams to, be better than what they are. Portland's kind of gotten back on the swing of it. It's not the same quality as before. Let's be real.
But that's to be expected, though. I mean, these guys have had a huge layoff. We've seen some scrimmages where, it gave you like a little taste. You're like, oh, it's back. Like this will be interesting. But I think as the games have come in to actually meaning something, it's tightened back up a little bit. And I think the fitness issue is starting to show now that the defense is playing actual defense against other teams. There's been a few teams standing out so far that have looked really good, where it's like it hasn't stopped. Toronto is one of those teams. But some of the other teams, now we're kind of looking at them just going, wow, like this has been a struggle. We're obviously going to talk about Philly a little bit later after this first segment. But yeah, they've struggled. Miami's been a little bit up and down. The Jazz, we'll talk about them as well. They've been a little bit up and down. Phoenix had a good win today.
The Nets just beat the Bucks out of nowhere.
Yeah, but apparently the Bucks were resting all their starters and all that jazz. Get it?
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. Like I'm sitting here not going. You know what? I expect the creme de la creme of basketball here, guys. But at the same time, I'm happy it's back. But I'm still watching it, sort of going, oh, this is a bit.
I thought a couple of the teams would actually, take the 3 or 4 months out. And the coaching staff would have let's just shake it up. Let's do something completely different. And it kind of hasn't done that. It's just like, we're just falling back into regular season games. Everyone kind of looks the same. The teams essentially playing the same way. The Bucks are just, central point, focus point, Giannis. The only team that looks like, oh, wow, they must have done something. And it's funny, it's the team where the country probably wasn't hit as hard is Toronto. It looks like they've been training for a little while longer. The ball movement's fantastic. Man, they're a real threat. They're a real threat to take out the East. They've got the big men to stifle Giannis in Gasol and Ibaka. I'm starting to like Toronto as the kind of the favorite team to potentially take that Eastern Conference away from the Bucks.
Got some really nice combos, eh? Like,
yeah,
it feels like a well-rounded team, as well-rounded as it can be on a restart after such a long break.
It feels like that as well. It feels like they've got a backcourt with shooting potential that isn't just fluky, like TJ Warren, who's I think scored 140 points on 61% shooting from 3, as if he's not going to get drug tested. He's going to get drug tested.
Yeah,
he's going to get drug tested. Mate, that game against Philly, he was just throwing up flaming bags and hoping,
We'll get to it. But what have you thought so far? Because this is our first episode, after the bubbles restarted. We didn't do one before, did we? No, it was right before it started. I think we did the last one. Well, how's the product, like the production, been for you?
the production's been amazing. Like how they've managed to achieve this, how they've kind of got the crowd set up where it's the people from home watching on Skype, and they've got the cameras, and they kind of flicks in between the crowds, and Philly gets their home team or Houston gets their home game. I think it's amazing what they've been able to put together, and it seems like it's working. It's COVID free in pretty much one of the biggest COVID hotspots in the world. And it seems to be, still going along strong. No one's testing positive. I think they've done an amazing job to get a product back from the brink of extinction, and it's not as good. Probably not got the same flow. Some of the teams are probably looking, why are you here?
Yeah,
but
it's that Nets Washington game was just like,
what is this? Why?
Just walk off and leave the bubble. Like from this game, you guys also just walk off the court, get on a plane, and just leave the bubble.
Well, that's it. Like the Bucks are honestly going to take it's going to be an interesting battle between Orlando and Brooklyn for that 7th and 8th seed, because I think the Magic may give the Bucks a bit of a harder time than Brooklyn. I think that they've got a bit more mobile in the big men space. Although Jonathan Isaac just quietly not standing for or not kneeling, and then his knee gets taken out. It's a little bit karma centric. It's like, oh, okay, so he's out for probably full 12 months. But they've got Mo Bamba in there. They've got a few big guys that can potentially clog some lanes. So that'll be an interesting matchup. I think the other matchups are kind of set in stone. I think you might see the Celtics and the Heat jostle for that third spot. But I think other than that, you pretty much got Philly at 6, Pacers at 5, and then that Celtics Heat switcheroo as a potential. So you kind of got the East set, and then that either Orlando or the Nets are going to get bungled out in the first round. So these real games are just kind of a fitness test for a lot of these guys. But in the West, I haven't seen anyone really play well. Even the Lakers, like, they look good, but they haven't been playing well. It's more off the back of LeBron and AD. Like, if you look at the team pre-bubble, they got a bit of a flow. They had some different players. Obviously, they've lost a few players from virus or injury or whatnot, and they've put in J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters, and they kind of don't really. It's kind of like that Cavs team with Wade.
Does
D
feel a bit
Rose.
Cavs-ish.
It just feels a bit. This is just a mishmash.
And remember when they had Deron Williams? And everyone was like, "Oh, watch out!" And I think he played like 2 minutes a game, and that was it. Just disappeared.
Yeah,
it does. But at the same time, that Lakers team, man, in the first couple of games, they look super scary. Like AD, I was saying to you, you watch AD, and up against Gobert, I'll go in depth when we go into the Jazz, but you just see the difference in that player. Like AD can shoot the ball, he can handle, he can pass, he can attack the rim, he can defend the rim. Like, he's just such a beast of a player in that LeBron system. They may be a little bit guard light, which is understandable because Rondo's not there. They got Quinn Cook kind of off the bench. They're playing a little bit of what's the white guy? Just name
Caruso.
Escapes. Yeah, Caruso. I wanted to say Tyler Hero, but it's clearly not Tyler Hero. Caruso playing a little, like handling the ball a little bit. They're kind of missing Bradley a little bit, and then J.R. Smith, like, it's what does he really do for this team? Like, how does he fit this team? He just kind of is there. And then Dion Waiters, you just like instant offense, like irrational confidence. He'll just shoot the ball whenever he feels like it, and you're like, okay, that kind of fits. But I still think they've got a lot of gel in that team.
They got good depth, I think. But AD is quite injury prone. We don't know what
I hope he stays healthy.
Look, you want to see him fit for the finals. You'd think that the Lakers, now that they clinched the first seed, the Clippers, we get to the Clippers in a sec, but the Lakers, they're going to the Western Conference Finals. However, their counterparts from across the way, they don't look too good.
They're struggling, I thought that too when the bubble restarted. Just like they look like a team that's just been thrown together. Like,
It's hey, me and you are friends. We like each other. Let's play some basketball together.
mm,
But you kind of play the same position. You're both really just glorified small forwards, and now you're playing Paul George at the 4 when he really can't defend the rim. And so you're coming up against that 4-5 LeBron AD or a 4-5 in Simmons Embiid or a 4-5 in Ibaka. You're just coming up against craftier players. It doesn't work. They just don't have a strong big man. That's the big issue. I mean, they got Joakim Noah, who's kind of
he has looked awful, like awful.
just
like let's sign JaVale McGee, everyone, and then you're like, yeah, he's going to be terrible, and then oh wow, actually, he did well for the Golden State Warriors and earned that contract for the Lakers, and you're like, man, he fits that team. But that just feels like like Joakim Noah just feels like, let's sign him, and like it'll be good, and he has looked terrible,
Yeah,
and even
again,
Zubats has looked pretty bad as well. Like it just doesn't fit. But is it Paul George? Is it? Is that the problem? Like, I don't know. Is it just everywhere he goes, they're kind of a bit underwhelming? That team just becomes underwhelming. But I think it's a team that's been thrown together, and you put Kawhi in that team, and you go, Kawhi is Kawhi, and Kawhi does Kawhi things. But you put him in that Toronto team, and that was already, an 8-year sort of, probably about 6 or 7 years in the making of the core. Then they added obviously Gasol, and Ibaka went back, or he went to Toronto. That was a better gelled team. Like this Clippers team just feels like 11 dudes just slapped together and just like, you guys play basketball and win. Like, I don't know if Kawhi can win with this team.
Yeah, it just feels like, oh, we're just going to max out 2 slots and then leave the rest a chance. I think that, they're not really strong on the guard front. They've got a couple of good shooters, but then they really have no bench depth. It's kind of just, all right, we've spent all this cap space on 2 really important players, and we think Kawhi can win just because he's Kawhi and he's the Terminator. But I think...
Yeah, they don't have an answer for Davis in that Lakers matchup.
They don't have an answer for any center that is anything like that. They'll wipe the floor with the Jazz. They'll wipe the floor with Brooklyn. They'll wipe the floor. Look, they may not even wipe the floor with Dallas. Dallas is one of those interesting, conversation pieces to have next. But they're not going to wipe the floor with any kind of center that is worth anything defensively, and is a stretch shooter, because they really just need Kawhi to score 50 points a game and Paul George to back him up, and that's really all they have. If they're not on, it's kind of like the Houston experience. If Westbrook and Harden don't score 70% of their points, they're just going to lose the game. It's the same thing. It's the same team built around 2 guys and some string beers.
String beers? Oh, string B. All right, yeah.
Yeah, string beers. You know what I mean?
Sounded like string beers, and I'm like, string beers? I've not heard that before.
I think they're really missing Montrezl Harrell. I think beasting and feasting down low. Overrated probably as a is hype, but still much better than Zubac and their other backup center.
McGrew. No, it wasn't even listed. So Noah didn't even play today against the Suns.
Yeah,
but they've clinched. Also, you kind of got to remember that they've clinched.
Yeah, I mean they're clinched, but they haven't really looked good the whole. They haven't looked good the whole year, to be honest with you. They've not looked like a team like, oh, this is a dynastic team. They just kind of look like, ooh, it's kind of like that Philly experience. Like, yeah, this should be good, but then you're like, oh, it maybe doesn't work. Like, why? Why have we done this?
It's again still comes down to, for me, they put Kawhi in this team, which is just a mishmash of shit players. Whereas you put Kawhi in that Toronto team, and that was already a fucking good team. And you're just like, oh, this is the piece that basically takes us to the next level where DeRozan couldn't take this team. Like, I know we've ragged on DeRozan a little bit, but it's just totally different. I just don't see this Clippers team, being that team that just blows away the East, away the West, like they did, like Kawhi did with Toronto in the East. I just don't see that happening. Yeah,
no, I'd probably agree with that sentiment. I think that the West is the Lakers to lose,
and they just don't good, man.
Yeah, they've looked good, and I just don't see any of the other teams really challenging. Dallas is terrible in the fourth quarter.
They're a weird team to watch, man. Really weird. Because they look good, and you're like, this is good. Like, I like this. Like Luka and Kristaps, it's working really good. Hardaway comes off the bench. and lights it up, and you're like, ooh, and then Boban comes out, and you're kind of like, all right, it's getting a bit freaky for me, but okay, we'll stick with it. But then like they just die. I
Yeah.
don't understand what it is. Like they go on these bouts of they can't score, they struggle.
Rubio shadowed
Maxi
by
Kleber's
Jackson.
been, not bad.
Leonard invites.
Not the worst, but
It's no Ryan Brokoff, mate. That's what it is. No depth.
well, Trey Burke had that really good game in the first game. I think he was 7 of 8 from 3.
Yeah.
And then from there, they shot 6 of 31 against the Spurs. So that's terrible. And then Lucas, like, I don't know. I like it. But there's something where you're just like, something's not right with this. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Like, I like watching him, but at the same time, I'm just a bit like, something's not right.
You know what it is? I think it's the dominance of the point position and the expectations around the point position. So, Luke obviously being the playmaker. You look at who's won over the last couple of years, and it hasn't been necessarily the point guard. Point guards, outside of the Warriors dynasty with Steph just being an absolutely phenomenal shooter. You look in the last 10 seasons, and it's never been a point dominant team that wins the championship. It's been, your LeBrons, your Kawhi, your Durant's, obviously your Freaky, but your Klay Thompsons, and then you go back to the Spurs dynasty, and that's really around Ginobili, Parker, and Duncan, but more so Duncan around anything. And I think that they're just like every team is just trying to put all their eggs into this playmaking basket and not backfilling some of those key positions for guys to get 20 a night. Like Tobias Harris isn't the best player in the league, but guess what? He scored more points than Kawhi in the league. Obviously Kawhi's had a bit of time out and Harris hasn't had as much time out, but he averages more points per game than Kawhi regular season. That's the guy you kind of need to inject at around 15 mil a season into that team like Dallas, who's got a bit of length. I think they get these guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. Yeah, streaky shooter, great shooter, but can't defend to save his life. Seth Curry, really good shooter, can't defend to save his life. The team isn't built around defense; it's just built around flashy offense, and that's where they're getting found out in the fourth quarter. Is they're just dying in the arse because when the team puts the clamps on defensively and they get strict, they lose morale and then they just tank. And Dallas is ranked 29th in clutch moments in the league.
Really?
29th.
Damn, because Luka was pretty clutch last year.
He was clutch offensively, but he's still Euro defensive.
Yeah,
and
he's looking a lot better though. Like he looks a lot like beefier and stronger this year, and especially after this restart too.
Yeah, great player, but I don't know if that we'll see anything for 3 years. I mean, it's still young. Like, come on.
It's so easy to forget. Like we've said it a bunch of times. We went through that 5-month Trey Mung period where we were just like, it's it, just quit. Like, don't even bother playing anymore. And then suddenly he goes on a run. You're just like, oh yeah, it's pretty good. It's so easy to do, man. So easy to just write these guys off. And if teams don't have adequate amounts of glue, like you were just saying, I think these teams are getting a bit like, we got our 3 guys, like we're sorted. And you're just like, yeah, but who else you got? Oh, who cares? We got our 3 guys. And you're just like, yeah, but what's the rest of your team doing? Like the rest of your team's a mess. Like, what made the Warriors, so good was they had those 2 guys, that backcourt, and then they had a decent sort of evolving front court that complemented the backcourt.
Well, they also
grew
had guys
as a team. Like some of these teams, you're just like, we got Kawhi and Paul George, man, and it's like, who else you got? Beverly and some other guys, Zubats. You're just like, it's a mess of a team. Like what? These 2 guys aren't going to take you all the way.
Well, that's that as well. And, you had guys like David West and Sean Livingston that could come off the bench and give you buckets. Like, Ron Livingston could get 8 to 14 a game, easy mid-range points.
And it was something different. Like it was a set defined role where you could just go, oh, we're throwing this at you now. And that teams had to go, oh shit, like let's go this way and try and defend this. Like
you watch that second unit come out for any team and it is Brick City. It's so brick because they try and play the same basketball as the first team, except they're not first team players. And I think one of the things of the salary is that, these guys are like, nah, man, I'm holding out for that, $20 million contract. And, you look back 10 years ago and like, no, let's build a team and win a championship, and the money will come in the back end of the career. These guys want it in the front end of the career, and they want to create these dynasties, and they're getting cap space hamstrung. And you see with the Clippers, there's just trash. It's just trash. And Lou Williams, going out with strippers.
Yeah, dude, that was just. I'm surprised the league didn't step in and just be like, and you're not coming back. Sorry, but that's it.
Yeah, he had a legitimate reason for leaving, and so you can't really police what people do outside.
What was his legitimate reason?
He had to go to a funeral. That was a legit. He did go, but then he went to get the pain away. He had to go and see strippers.
Okay, it's legit. All right, fair enough. Conspiracy hat off. Fair enough. We've been talking basketball, and now I kind of don't really want to go on a rant about Houston. I kind of want to nothing them.
Let's do it. No, let's do it. Let's just go on and just for a moment, take a deep breath and remind ourselves that what Houston plays isn't basketball.
It's
like something you played in NBA 2K95. Like it was just like, let's just put our stats to 99 and hurl flaming bags from the 3-point line for 48 minutes a game. And if we get fouled, then we'll just be paraded to the line and shoot free throws. It's terrible. It's unskilled. The problem is that obviously they've got one good player who's just a complete freak of a shooter as well.
You know what the real issue is, but it's attitude based, right? So it's all based around the attitude of being like, yeah, that's right, yep. Because it's just a string of really big moments. Like, whoa, did you see it? Whoa, oh my God, whoa, whoa. Like, that's what that basketball is. Like you don't sit down, you watch a game and it ebbs and flows. It's got nuance. It moves here and there. Like, there's tactical stuff. Like, it's the same thing over and over. It's like a video game where someone just works out, oh, if you go to the corner and just keep pressing B, like, you just get all these points and you win. And it's just like, yeah, but that's not a game. Like, you just go to the corner and, like, exploit the game. Like, I can't handle watching it, man. And, like, Westbrook has changed the way that team plays, and because Westbrook's got so much energy, like, they can all feed off that, and I like that. I'm like, okay, I like what Westbrook's done to this team, and I can go, yeah, fair enough. But then, like, it's the same thing over and over. Like, it'll just be the same thing, and you're just kind of like, guys, it's third quarter. Like, you're really gonna Russ drives and he passes out of the corner. They swing it all the way back around. 25-yard pass into the corner. The guy's slightly open. He hits a three, and you're like, this is just not that interesting, man. And it's the same thing. It'll be like 2 plays later, you're just like, wait a minute, am I watching a replay? Russ just drives to the corner, they swing it all the way around, then someone tosses it to the other corner, and the guy shoots a 3, slightly contested, and makes it. It's like, I can't handle it. Just looking at how many threes they've shot. So 19 of 48 against Dallas. Against the Bucks, they shot 60 plus. 61 threes. That's just absurd. And Van Gundy on the telecast was going, well, they hit some threes and they got to the free throw line, so that's why they won. And I'm just like, that's a terrible reason to win. Like, what the fuck? Why are we glorifying this? This is awful. Yeah, like, they didn't play well. Their backcourt didn't, their backcourt kind of caught fire at the right moment. It's not even that kind of thing where, they hit some shots and that was it. Like, you can see that this team, like today, the Blazers beat them basically because the Blazers kind of attacked the rim at the start. They got a few easy buckets over the small ball of the Rockets, and then were kind of able to, like, keep them off with hustle and flow. And the Rockets didn't shoot really that well. So as soon as the Rockets don't shoot well, you're just like, well, you're really going to struggle to win, are you? Because you don't have a second gear. You don't have somewhere to go. You don't have a change of pace, something to switch everything up. And then suddenly they'll hit some threes, like 19 of 53, and you're just like, but they shot 35%, man. And it's just like, yeah, but they take so many. It's just outrageous. Anyway, that's it.
Well, that and it pushes the pace. It's just like, all right, dribble, and we're going to pull up from the paint, and then we run back because we missed. And it's just like, yeah, the rate of shots. And other teams get lulled into it as well. They don't slow down the pace on the Rockets. They kind of like, I'm going to run the floor. And you play into the Rockets game. What you have to do is just play jazz style, run that shot clock down if you play the Rockets, really frustrate them. Don't let them play in the open court and make all these stupid uncontested or contested threes. But yeah,
Hey,
it's terrible to
who
watch.
looked like they really struggled against that when the game speeds up like that and they got lulled into it, that Bucks game, man, like it felt like the Bucks just couldn't go quick. Like you watch the first game, the Dallas Houston game. Dallas is obviously a team that can just go insanely quick. They can't defend. So you obviously get, like, I think it was like 110 in the third quarter, like three quarters of the way through the third quarter. So that's like, that plays into their game. But in that Bucks Rockets game, man, the Bucks, like whenever the Rockets sped them up, they just looked like they really struggled. Which I thought, like, that was one genuine thing where I went, that's interesting. That's an interesting takeaway from this game.
It could be a conditioning thing. You think that 10 games in, they're probably going to be a bit more conditioned, or not even that, probably we're looking at like 16, 18 games in, they're going to be much more conditioned physically to play the Rockets if the Rockets came out of the Western Conference, which I don't think they will. I just don't think that style of basketball. I don't know.
I can see it. Again, it goes back to like, it's like a highlights tape. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that's like what people, like, it's 2K basketball. You're right. Like, that's what 2K is. Like, nobody wants to play 2K for the little bits in between. They want to see, like, wow, what a crazy dunk. Wow, he shot that from 40 feet. Wow, like he went past, like Russell Westbrook went past someone and dunked on them, and the other guy was 6'8". Like, that's kind of what people want to see now. But it's just, I can't handle it. So it was good to see them lose to the Pelicans, Portland Trail Blazers. That was kind of a mix of a bunch of teams into that. Should we talk about anybody else before we go on to Philly?
We can talk about...
Philly is the next. The great Shake Escape. The Shake Escape.
We can say that. Philly just did not deserve to win this game at all.
How have they looked to you? Yeah, dead air is exactly right. Correct answer.
Better when Simmons is off the floor offensively, but their defense falls apart.
And then when good defensively, man. Just watching him again, you're just like, wow, he's just insane. The speed, the power, like the way he can just get steals, just insane.
It's insane, and it works. Like they've now got a kind of a motto of they don't play Horford, Simmons or Embiid at the same time. It's only a combination of two. But they've been playing Simmons at the elbow, and it limits his ability to open up the floor and pass in transition. But it also puts more onus on a rookie to take those shots that maybe he doesn't want to take in Shake Milton. Maybe he does have a license. I haven't seen the license. He didn't score any points in the first game, but did score the game winner in the Great Shake Escape against the Spurs. But the Spurs don't have a lot of their players. LaMarcus isn't playing in this tournament. They've lost, a couple of key elements due to certain factors to do with the coronavirus, and yet they still managed to rack up 130 odd points against Philly. Patty Mills still looks good. Still looks like Patty Mills.
He looks good, man. He was good today, even though he hasn't. I don't think he played in any of that scrimmage. He hasn't played basketball in a long time, like competitive basketball. Yeah, but he looked good.
Still looked good. Still looked fit. Still shot well. Still could get into spaces that no one else could, and looked good. I wouldn't put past the Spurs, man. The Spurs look like a team that's on a little bit of a mission to get into this 8th seed playoff in the West. But Philly don't look like they could take out the Heat, the Bucks, the Raptors. I'd feel pretty confident in a 7 series they could probably take out the Celtics or the Pacers or Orlando or the Nets. But I just don't think they have it enough to take out some of those other teams the way they're playing. I do think it's probably time for a change of coaching staff.
Yeah, you're on the Brett Brown out train. Nah, it's not an out train. Like it's not an out train. It's just kind of a bit like, ooh, is this really the issue?
Yeah, it's kind of the process of the evolution is that the evolution or the process has moved past the style of play. And
But is that
you've
the
got,
players though?
I don't know.
And he was coach GM for a little bit there as well with the whole Colangelo
Yeah.
thing. Quickly, I want to just touch on Embiid. He looks like he has like, I don't know. It's like not like he's unfit, but at the same time, he kind of looks
Underneath.
like he's struggling a little bit for fitness. Maybe
Pacers
He's just a
shot
big
more
dude. Like,
three-point
he's
shots in the
kind of
restart.
like that Shaq build. He's not tall and wispy. He's tall and massive.
Mm.
And it's hard to run the floor and play block to block. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah, for
hard
sure.
for any center at 7'1" and that weight. And he does. He plays block to block. So he's not the kind of guy like Davis that can play in the low block and then come up and play on at the top of the arc.
He's just so dense.
Yeah, he's just look. You know, their length is ridiculous, but I think what we've seen in this is that length is in everything.
Mm.
You know, some of the shortest teams have won it over the last couple of years. And you know, Houston goes small ball, Philly goes big. You know, really hasn't worked either way. And there's a harmony, I think, and there's a basketball harmony, and I don't think either has hit that harmony.
I don't like watching him play. I'm just gonna say it. I'm just putting it out there. Like what he's doing in this team at the moment, the way it's constructed, it's like he wants to be that Anthony Davis of this team, but he doesn't have he doesn't have the handles and the ability to get to the basket with the ball in hand. Like he's got to settle for shots. You know, you've got to give him the space in the block, which I think teams are getting better at defending in the block and understanding the IQ of the block situation, if that makes sense. Like making sure to push him off that spot and to keep him in areas where he has to either settle for jumpers or he kind of takes a little bit too long to set up his little triple threat, his moves, and he doesn't kind of have the ball skills to get to the cup from about 8 feet. That like is if you give him the ball, he knows like already in advance what he needs to do. He needs to go left, right, one dribble, like and either dunk or lay the ball in. Like I've seen a few players in this bubble at the moment that have that, and you just kind of go, like that's a bit of a separator. I don't know. He's still such a good player, but at the same time, like I don't know if there's something going on there. And then Philly, obviously, that's not their go-to offense too. Like they've got a number of weapons they can kind of juggle the ball around with.
Yeah, I think they're missing JJ Redick. That's really what it is. JJ Redick was that piece at the 2 spot. Yes, he wasn't defensively sound, but he was dial-up offense, and they don't have dial-up offense. It's just like, okay, we're just going to go to Redick to get a bucket. Oh yeah, Redick. You know, they're so big that they don't utilize their space and their length in screening for shooters because they don't have those kind of shooters in the team. They've given up all their shooters. They gave up Shamet, who was a JJ Redick clone. They gave up Redick. And the rest of the guys can't shoot off the curl, man. That was the whole point, was Embiid and Simmons are so wide that all they have to do is set a screen, a legal screen, and you've got guys open off the curl. And the Warriors were perfect examples of this. Bogut would set these crunching screens, and Curry would have all the time in the world to come around and shoot. And none of the Philly players can do that. None can shoot off a curl. And that's the issue. They're all knockdown shooters and they require open space to do so. And not a lot of them can create their own shot off the dribble, which is another issue. So it's all this kind of elbow-based offense and trying to get to the cup as opposed to dialing up some offense. And the only dial-up offense they really have is Embiid. And it's in the low block. And if he hasn't, if he's got a quick double team and he kicks out, you might get Harris at the 3 line, or you might, fake and drive or something like that. It's just, there's not like, okay, we've got nothing, plays broken down, Redick comes around the curl, Shamet comes around the curl, bang, there's a 3. That is demoralizing offense, and Philly doesn't have any of that anymore.
So going down their roster, obviously, in the starters, Harris, I feel like Harris can knock down a 3 like that, but at the same time, he's so big. Like he's almost like a power forward that could probably play small ball center. and the space is just choked up for him. Simmons, obviously can't shoot a three. Richardson, I don't know why, but I thought he was bigger. Like, I was watching that game against the Pacers, and I was like, Josh Richardson? Like, he looks small, man, especially next to Simmons, too.
He's 6'6".
Yeah, but he just looks really small, man. Like, watching him, I was just like, he looks like a tiny guard. So you're right about the size of this team. Shake Milton, he's kind of needs to dial up his own offense, really, doesn't he?
Mm.
And then Horford, Neto, Burks, Thibault, Korkmaz. Who are you getting a creative shot maker off a screen out of that lot?
None of them.
Mm.
Korkmaz is more of a dial-up shooter, but definitely can't and slow, not able to quickly move around screens. And a lot of the time is that, Redick or Shamet were such good off-ball movers that he would open up space in the block for Simmons, and they just don't get that. It's kind of like this just set offense, and then there's just no player movement, or very limited player movement because the lanes are so close because they're so big.
It's strange, man. It's really because Embiid had 41 points against Indiana, and 15 of 23, really efficient. Got to the line as well, 21 boards. Like, you look at that and you just go, what a monster. But then you kind of watch it and you're like, just something's not right about it. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on what it is. Obviously, Embiid today had 27 points, 9 of 17, 9 of 12 from the line. The Spurs are a silky team. They don't have the power. They don't have the explosiveness. They just kind of have more veteran silk about them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of understandable that they'd play well against a Philly team that has some issues defensively. But, yeah, I don't know. And then Simmons
hasn't been playing well.
He hasn't? No, I don't think so either. Defensively, he's still been quite good, but it looks like he's gone back to the, I'm just not going to shoot then. And you're like, but just do something then. Like, dude, like, exist in the offense and, I don't know. I can't explain it. I'm worried, man, about this Philly team, to be honest. It feels like a meltdown on the way, It's got that kind of vibe to it to me.
It's got a first round exit vibe for me.
Yeah.
And GG or good game, Brett Brown.
GGBB.
GGBB.
GGBB. We'll go hashtag GGBB, try and get that trending. Admittedly, Philly over the next few games, they've got Washington, Orlando, and then Portland, and I think they've got one more game after that on Thursday.
Houston. That'll be good, but I suppose it'll be a rest game, and really it'll just
Phoenix first, and then Houston.
Houston, yeah, they'll both kind of be rest games. I think Philly are aiming for Celtics first round. To be honest with you, they've got a winning record against them, and the team is set up well to play them. Whereas Miami has just got a whole bunch of fast shooters just run rings around you, and I think that just tires Philly out too much.
Hang on, I'm just looking at their schedule in depth. It's a little bit slow. So they got Washington, Orlando, Portland, Phoenix, Toronto, Houston. So that's not bad. Like, there's a couple of trash teams in there for them to find some mojo, but do you bank on them finding mojo?
No.
I really don't, to be honest. But wait and see what happens for them.
Indeed.
Let's move on from stink to more stink. The Jazz, man, they have looked horrendous, to be honest. They really looked bad in that Pelicans game. Like, the Pels probably should have won that game.
Yes.
They just died at the end, and Utah put a 27-17 quarter in, and that was essentially what won them the game, basically.
Zero Zion and Lonzo Ball going 2 from 400.
Yeah. And I even, like, when I watched that game back, I was just like, how did the Jazz win this game? This doesn't make sense at all. But they just look really bad without Bogdanovic. Their bench unit now too just looks like, where did it go? Like, you guys had a pretty decent sort of rotation bench unit. Now, like, it's just, it falls off a cliff. You got Niang, Bradley, Clarkson, Moutier, and then Ed Davis, who kind of doesn't really play, and then Brantley, Morgan, Tucker. nobodies basically.
Mm. You think that they
It's
would have signed some two-way players that had it, It seemed like Brooklyn went out and just signed a whole bunch of decent players that have played some NBA before, and like, oh yeah, these are like Justin Anderson, TLC. Okay, we'll give these guys kind of end of season contracts, and the Jazz just went, no, we're just happy with trash. And you're like, well, you're not really going there to compete, are you?
and then it's like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take away the versatility in the second unit, and it's just gonna be Clarkson with the ball. It's like, no, man, no. There's so much Clarkson in that second unit. It's just,
Yes.
and fair play to him. He come into that team, gave him a spark. He probably got a little bit too much leash. As soon as he came in, he was quite good, but now it's like he's really struggling, and it just becomes that's their only offense when he comes on in the second unit, and they're missing Bogdanovic so badly.
Yeah, they are. They're really missing that like kind of spark player who can just shoot lights out.
Just get a bucket. What about Joe, Jingling Joe? How do you reckon he's been?
Jingling Joe's body needs to be worked on a little bit, I think. Yeah, I think that definitely the lockdown has not been kind to Jingling Joe's fitness levels. He looks like
fat.
Yeah, he looks like he did the first 2 games of the World Cup, pre-World Cup series. Just like, he's there, but he's going to take a little bit of time to get into it. And I suppose that's what these games are for, is to get into it
and get that passive too. Like, it's hard because he's a facilitative, passive type of player. He's not a ball dominant. Needs the headlines, needs the lights type of guy. So it's easy for us to just be like, man, he's looking a bit fat. Like, oh, what's going on? He's struggling. Like,
yeah, but I think I haven't seen a lot of good pick and roll with Gobert. That's one thing I've noticed. And he hasn't been slinking to the corners for 3 enough. Like that's how you score. Like when in the absence of a center who cannot shoot, you need to be aggressive and get Joe Ingles involved. Like they know when Joe Ingles scores more than 10 points and more than 8 assists, they win like 80% of the time. You need to get him the ball. You need to get him to facilitate. But again, Mike Conley's actually looked a lot better and in this team post-COVID. So that's a plus because pre-COVID he was looking pretty terrible. But yeah, I don't see it.
It's kind of like, do you weigh that up? It's like, but Conley's looking better, but it's like the whole team looks terrible now.
Yeah.
And Donovan Mitchell, again, it's just too much to put on his shoulders. He looks like a guy that if you put the right guys around him, he could put a team on his shoulders, but not this team. Like this team is just a bit of a mess.
Well, it's got to be interesting, and obviously there's going to be a lot of studies done afterwards, man. But many of these players got the Rona. Like how is their fitness? How is their bodies handling playing professional basketball again? We just don't know. There's got you can see why maybe some of these teams have slowed down or players just haven't been able to make the trip. But look at Westbrook and Harden. They both had it and they seem completely fine.
Harden looks like he's at about 70%. But Westbrook's just a freak though.
He's just an athletic giant.
Just high energy. I wish he could just give me some of his energy. Just the tiniest little bit, and I'd be like, my productivity would go up 200%. But Jingling Joe, he's not shooting the ball well either too, and he looks reluctant to shoot him too. A couple of times he's been in the corner and just kind of dribbled out and passed it and kept the ball moving, and he's just like, Joe, shoot that, man. What's going on? You lost faith in your shot. Rudy Gobert, like I was saying before about Anthony Davis, in that Jazz Lakers game, every time sort of like Rudy had looked good, and you go, oh man, like when he rolls to the basket, they kind of struggle to contain him. And then Davis would get 2 or 3 possessions where like he'd dribble to the hole, he'd get the ball on the outside, he'd create something for himself, he'd get the ball rotated to him on a knockdown shot wide open and he'd knock it down. And then you just go, oh yeah, like that's kind of what the Jazz are missing. Like Rudy does 2 things and he does them really well. Defensively, he's very good, sets really good screens, plays well high up. He tries hard too. That's one thing where you can't just go, oh man, it's awful. Like, what is he doing? Like, you kind of go, he does try to come out onto the perimeter. He does try to switch around, switch on defense and switch, effectively on the perimeter. But at the same time, like you pair that against Davis and you just look at those 2 players and you're just like, Davis does like 4 other things that fit into this team and are better for a basketball team. And you just look at Rudy and just like, you just can't handle the ball at all. You can't pass. You can't like shoot off the dribble. Can't knock down a shot. And then those 2 types of players are like night and day.
Yeah.
And even though he's won Defensive Player of the Year a few times, you're still a little bit just like, And I like Rudy Gobert. But I like him, but you just see that once you put those 2 players together side by side, you just see that limitation and you're like...
Yeah, he's not a Supermax player. Not a Supermax player.
Is he on the Supermax?
No, he's eligible.
Yeah, he's eligible. I wouldn't give it to him, man.
No, I don't think any team
should. It sucks too, because I like him. And, 5 years ago, totally a good player, like perfect player for any team to have, like a 7'2" big man defensive monster, can like knock down lobs, finish lobs. But now it's like, oh, whoops, sorry, you're going to have to shoot, handle the ball, and, create as well. And you're like, wow, like so far, the NBA's come so far.
Yeah, man.
In the last few years. All right, quickly, Jamal Crawford, you want to talk about his Swift injection and exit?
Swift injection and even swifter exit. Yeah, came in, played some minutes, and then got injured. The extent of the injury yet unknown. But
sucks.
I suppose this is what happens when you play NBA at 40 years old, man. The body does not... he looked good. Look, he looks smooth, man. Play big three. It's good. It's fun. I'd watch it. I think it's awesome. But you're not NBA quality anymore. Let's be real. You're a bucket. You're a walking bucket. But it's big three, baby. That's it.
Yeah, this just sounds so condescending. Just stick to the big three.
That's it, man.
But
Ice Cube.
He used to just knock down shots for the Clippers, man. On that Clippers team.
Oh yeah.
You'd just be like, no. And Redick was the same. He's like, Redick, no, he's open. That's a bucket. All right, well, we'll wrap it there. We'll be back. What do you reckon next week to do a little bit more?
Yeah, mate. We'll do a wrap up. I think just at the end of the bubble, maybe we'll do some previews of the teams.
Playoff preview, bit of a playoff bubble preview.
Yeah, and we'll be there bringing you the games.
All right, and we will see you guys on the next episode next week.
Peace out.
I'll take it easy, peeps.